You're listening to Setting Course, an ABS podcast. Join us as we navigate the latest trends, developments, and challenges facing the rapidly evolving maritime and offshore industries. Catch every episode at www.eagle.org and podcast platforms everywhere. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm John Snyder, managing editor of Riviera Maritime Media, and I'll be your host. Decarbonization continues to be a focal point for shipping, and one of the compelling alternative fuels being considered is ammonia. However, it also has its challenges. Today, we're going to discuss ammonia as a marine fuel and some of those challenges with Renee Larson. Renee is the Director of Fuels and Technology at ABS. Renee, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John.
So, Renee, let's jump right into it. Tell me a bit about ammonia. Why is it being considered an alternative fuel for shipping?
Yeah, it's quite obvious that the shipping is going to be carbon neutral in 2050. That has just been agreed within IMO. And we are now targeting solutions within shipping where we're going to use carbon-free fuel or carbon-neutral fuel. And then ammonia comes up as an attractive alternative to other carbon-neutral fuels like methanol, LNG, that also can be produced without any impact on CO2 emissions, because it does not require any biogenic carbon for production. It comprises just nitrogen and hydrogen in its molecule. And therefore, it can basically be produced from renewable electricity, either from solar or from hydropower or from wind. So it's in terms of combustion, then there will not be emitted any carbon from the combustion, and therefore not any CO2. So when a ship owner has or using ammonia on board, he can basically not do any more in order to eliminate the CO2 emissions. So this is why it's getting very interesting for ship owners to use ammonia as a fuel.
Now, you spoke about ammonia being produced from renewable sources, but today, most of the ammonia is not produced that way.
No, today, ammonia is being produced from either methane or coal in a steam reforming process where methane is turned into hydrogen, and then CO2 is emitted to the air. Nitrogen is being captured from the air. 78% of the air is nitrogen, so it's actually easy to capture nitrogen for the production of ammonia. The technology for production of ammonia is the Haber-Bosch process, and that was invented in 1913. And came in commercial operation approximately 20 years after, in 1930. So this Haber-Bosch process is an old technology which is fully optimized. And this is the same process which is going to be used today in order to produce renewable ammonia based on renewable electricity.
But of course, one of the challenges then is getting enough renewable electricity to produce the green ammonia.
Yes, and that's the huge challenge. It is to scale up electricity production. I will say that if you look around and see what is announced in terms of green ammonia project, then we have gathered all announcement and found that approximately 130 million tons of green ammonia is going to be produced in 2030 to 2035, and that is a significant amount. If the whole shipping is going to use green ammonia as a fuel, it should use around 580 to 600 million tons per annum. So it corresponds approximately to a little less than a third of what is needed for the total shipping, and that will be available probably around 2035, 2040. Those quantities there.
So, but of course, it could also be blended as as the fuel becomes available, the green ammonia becomes available, it could be blended as part of a decarbonization strategy.
Yes, if you are looking at green ammonia, then the production cost compared to the ammonia we use today, which we call either gray or brown, depending on how it is produced, then the cost will probably be 2 to 3 times more expensive in the future. So it will have a big cost impact for the ship owners to use this fuel. And that can be mitigated by using a blend, where you blend in fossil-based ammonia into the green ammonia. But you can also perhaps use a cheaper alternative, the same fuel which you are using today, which is very low sulfur fuel oil in the beginning, and then have intermediate operation on ammonia. So your period is operating on ammonia, and a period is operating on very low sulfur fuel oil. Very low sulfur fuel oil is probably a better option compared to green or to gray brown ammonia. Production of brown or gray ammonia is emitting something like 60% more CO2 than fuel oil. So to use that as a fuel is really not an alternative. It will just increase the problem that we are in.
Right. So current ammonia has a worse carbon footprint than very low sulfur fuel oil.
Yeah, that's clear. Simply because that the Haber-Bosch process and the steam reforming process you're using there requires energy, and that is emitted directly to the air. So there is a energy loss in this process. If you compare to using methane directly compared to steam reforming and Haber-Bosch process, then it's clear that it's much more energy efficient to use this form of energy as a fossil fuel instead of ammonia. Today, ammonia is being used as a fertilizer. It's also being used as a refrigerant in cooling system on fishing ships and also fish factory. So it is actually already available on some ships in the engine room, and there is codes and regulation in order on how to deal with this ammonia on board ships.
Now, René, what kind of propulsion technology are we talking about in using ammonia? I see Wärtsilä, for example, has announced an availability of an ammonia dual fuel engine in the 4-stroke category, and WinGD and MAN are discussing their 2-stroke alternatives, which will be released in the near future.
Yes, this is what we are going to see first of all. This is the 4-stroke engines, which is coming out from Wärtsilä, as you said, and also the 2-stroke engine manufacturers. They will also be delivering engines that can operate on ammonia. The question is, what kind of technology should you use for combustion of ammonia? And if you compare to the use of LNG, there's 2 ways to go there for engine manufacturers in order to develop those engine systems. It's a so-called autocycle type of combustion that can also be used for combustion of ammonia. It has some disadvantages, but it certainly also has some advantages. The overall engine system will be less efficient with the autocycle, basically. Autocycle is where you premix air and fuel, and you compress it within the engine system. And then you ignite it when you have the piston in top dead center position. The alternative is a diesel cycle, and here you have a high pressure of the fuel being delivered to the engine, and you inject it while you have your piston in top dead center position. And then you have an ignition with pilot fuel or a spark, and you get a much cleaner combustion without any fuel slip with the diesel process. The disadvantage with the diesel process is that you need a high pressure of the fuel being delivered to the engine. And for ammonia, we are talking about 600 bar supply pressure. And you will have need to develop pumps that is delivering this kind of supply pressure for the engine system. And they have a cost. So the alternative is to go to the Otto cycle, which only require pressure in the between 5 to 15 bar supply pressure. And that's a lot cheaper to develop pumps and compressors for that purpose. On the other hand, you can expect with the Otto cycle that you get more fuel slip, and for ammonia this is an issue because ammonia is toxic, and you cannot emit that from the exhaust gas system. So you will need to eliminate that in the exhaust gas system, and that can be done by applying an SCR system. And SCR is also a technology that can remove NOx in the exhaust gas system, but it works on using ammonia. And if you know how much ammonia slip you have in your exhaust gas system, then you can turn this ammonia into a NOx reduction. So the Otto cycle has a cost impact on the after treatment, where the diesel cycle has a cost impact on the supply side. In the diesel cycle, you will not be having any fuel slip from the combustion. It will be a clean combustion with very limited amount of ammonia in there. So there's not needed any after treatment for the ammonia slip.
Rene, you had mentioned pilot fuel, and ammonia has been kind of characterized as a lazy fuel. Could you talk a little bit about how much pilot fuel you potentially could need?
Ammonia burns very, very slowly, so it's actually best suited for engines that operate with a low RPM, and that is in particular interesting for two-stroke engines. They operate today with an RPM around 70 to 100 RPM. Where if you look at the medium speed engines, they operate in perhaps 250 RPM. They're both suited, but two-stroke is better suited because they have a long period where it can burn the fuel. In order to ignite ammonia, ammonia have a very low C10 number. C10 number is the fuel's ability to self-ignite. So it would need support from a pilot fuel, and the expectation is that the pilot fuel for the big bore engine will be in the range of 5%. Perhaps in the beginning it will be slightly higher until engine makers find out how to optimize it. But there is a test result that indicate that the 5% can be reached. For engine operating with a high RPM, it's more difficult to reduce the pilot fuel. So for medium speed engines operating in a range of 200 to 300 RPM, we will see a higher amount of pilot fuel, perhaps 10 to 15 or even 20% pilot fuel will be needed for those type of engines.
So to reach that zero emission goal, owners will have to look at perhaps fuels such as biodiesel or something on some kind of biofuel.
Yes, they cannot reach 100% by using ammonia solely. I think also in the future we are going to look at well to tank emission and also well to wake emissions, where we're looking at the release of CO2 during production, transportation, and use of ammonia. So we're looking at the full chain there. And it's difficult even for green ammonia to reach the absolute zero. There will still be a little amount of CO2 that will be released. And also for combustion, you will have the impact there from the use of diesel. This can be biodiesel, or it can also be synthetic diesel that can be used to ignite the ammonia. I would say the reason for using ammonia instead of, let's say, synthetic diesel is that ammonia is more simple to produce. It does not require the same amount of energy, renewable energy, in order to produce an energy unit of ammonia compared to an energy unit of diesel. Diesel will probably be using something like 2 to 3 times as much energy for production of the same energy amount. So it's a matter about limiting the amount of pilot fuel as much as practical possible.
Now, Rene, what about storing ammonia as compared to traditional marine fuels?
Storing of ammonia on the board ship is already taking place today. There's 20 million tons of ammonia which is being transported in LPG carrier, and there's 700 LPG carrier out there, which is suitable for transporting ammonia. So tank system for carrying ammonia is ready available today. These are the so-called Type C tanks. It's a tank which is designed for a pressure of up to 20 bar. If you store ammonia in those tank system, it will remain liquid in ambient condition up to 45 degrees. The alternative is to use Type A tank, and these are tanks which is non-pressurized. It's designed for overpressure of 0.7 bar. It is supported by a secondary barrier, and it's storing the ammonia in a liquid form at minus 33 degrees. It does not take up the same amount of volume as the Type C tank. So it's, in terms of volume efficiency, it's a more attractive solution. But on the other hand, you will need something to deal with boil-off gas coming from ammonia, because you store it at minus 33 degrees. There's no cooling in the tank system. There's insulation. So it will keep on boiling, and this ammonia there in a vapor form, it has to be reliquefied and sent back to the tank system. It seems to be the most attractive solution for the bigger ship types because it's a cheaper tank solution, and it does not take up the same amount of space as the Type C tank.
So there's potentially some additional capex in investing in some kind of reliquefaction technology.
Yes, it will have a relatively big impact on the capex or the investment the ship owners is putting into a new ship design. You will need to have both the tanks for ammonia. You need to have a fuel supply system that is delivering ammonia to the engine system. You will need a bunkering system so you can bunker ammonia. And you will need a vent mast system, and all this is added cost for the ship owner. The same also with the engine system. Designing an engine that is able to operate ammonia will not make the engine system cheaper. We will expect that there is a cost increase. What we see now is that it is expected to cost approximately 50% more than a conventional fuel oil engine. So overall, it is a significant amount in first cost that the ship owner will have to invest in order to get an ammonia-fueled ship.
And not only that, you're looking at increased costs, OPEX costs, because of projected price anyway of green ammonia.
Yes. When we come to 2050, then all the ammonia fuel is going to be green ammonia, and that will have an impact of the OPEX cost, perhaps 2 or 3 times the cost we see today. So it will set a new standard for how we are going to design the ship. All the devices that can improve the efficiency of the ship, I will expect that those is going to be implemented on the ship design. We can expect to see that there's going to be wind-assisted propulsion system is going to be applied on top of the ship, simply because that this can give some reduction in fuel cost. There's a better business case for this. There's also system like air lubrication system, small bubbles that is being injected below the hull of the ship that can lower the friction of the ship and give some improvement. The waste heat recovery system, which is using the heat in the exhaust gas system. And there's a different other technologies which can give small improvement, paint and rudders, propellers, all those type of solutions we will expect to see implemented in new ship design.
So energy efficiency, absolutely critical.
Yes, that's for sure. It's going to be the engineers' centuries, the next 2 or 3 centuries here, because we are going to design the ship in a completely different manner. The business case move when you are having when your fuel cost is increasing by a factor of 2 or 3 compared to today. And then suddenly a lot of technology which is on the edge, as mentioned before, they are becoming attractive to implement in new ship design.
Now, one of the challenges we haven't discussed actually is the toxicity of ammonia, and of course the safety of seafarers. I was wondering if you'd talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, ammonia is heavily toxic. It is transported today 20 million tons on board LPG carriers, and this is taking place over the last 60 years, and with good result. There's a very few incident with ammonia leaks and casualties. But if you have just a low amount of ammonia being released on board the ship, if it's above 300 ppm, it can have a critical impact on your health. So this should absolutely be avoided. Ammonia in small quantities, 5 ppm, is not dangerous, and even up to 50 ppm is not dangerous, and it's easy to smell. And the recommendation is if you can smell ammonia, then move away from the area there. But if it's bigger leak, then the seafarers, they will not be able to smell it immediately. We need to have a safety system which is detecting leaks. We need to have implementation of system that can turn ammonia vapor, ammonia liquid into a water ammonia solution, which is not dangerous, and then send that to a drain system. All these systems is today being developed and is going to be implemented. The target for many of the project where ABS is involved in is to collect ammonia vapor in case you have a leak there, and then get it away in a safe manner and store it in a dedicated tank system. Same also with liquid leaks. And then on board, there's supposed to be also protection system for those who work there in case there is a leak and they have to do maintenance on that part. Then there will be mask, gloves, glasses, and suit which is able to withstand liquid ammonia, so they can be sure that there's no harm for them.
So still quite a bit of work to do on ammonia, but things are progressing.
Absolutely. We see already now, if we look in the market, there is a number of projects which has been announced, which is going to be where the ship is going to be fueled by ammonia as small LPG carriers, and there's a bigger LPG carrier, VLGC carrier, up to 90,000 cubic meter. And there is actually also a very large ammonia carrier on the way to be designed, up to 150,000 cubic meter. So this will be coming. Ship owners have seen the market for ammonia is going to be present in the future. The areas where green ammonia is going to be produced is areas where there is a lot possibility of building up a lot of renewable electricity production in using solar cells and wind turbine. And these areas is desert area. It's remote areas. It's Western Australia. It's Africa. It's Saudi Arabia, Oman. It's Chile. There's a lot of land there where you can put up these solar farm for production of ammonia. The thing is that when you have produced it, you have to transport it away in shipping. And ship owners, they have seen this market is coming. We from ABS, we have estimated that within the next 10 years, there will be a need for approximately 100 to 200 VLGCs just for transporting the additional ammonia coming from this production.
So quite an exciting market then.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, Rene, with just a few minutes left in our podcast, I was wondering if you had any final thoughts for our listeners.
Yes, you can say that if you're looking at ammonia, why when it's toxic, why is it needed actually to use that on board ship? I would say in shipping, it's a relatively small amount of people who will be in touch with ammonia. So training those is it's a task which is possible to do within a relatively short time. The crew on board will need training dedicated to be able to handle with a different situation on ammonia. So I would say shipping is more or less ideal for ammonia. I cannot see ammonia being used in cars in the future. There will simply be too many people there is going to deal with ammonia. But on board ship, it seems to be able to work. And then it does not require any biogenic carbon for production of ammonia. Biogenic carbon is a limited source. We see it already today that there's the price on biogenic carbon for production of different chemicals is going up. Ammonia do not need that. So it is expected that ammonia is going to be, let's say, the cheapest alternative fuel out there in the future.
Well, thank you for that, Rene, and thanks for joining me today on Setting Course, an ABS podcast.
Thank you very much for letting me participate.
Thank you for joining us today on Setting Course, an ABS podcast. If you're interested in learning more about today's topic or listening to more episodes, visit www.eagle.org.